Hello, I'm just on my way back from the park in Seattle, or Bellevue actually. Hello, I'm just on my way back from the park. This is Somerset, somewhere in Bellevue, and wanted to make a quick video note talking about my experience getting my first $100,000 as a software engineer. And it was definitely a great learning experience for several reasons. When I first started out as a software engineer, right out of college, I was making $65,000. And that was quite a bit, especially coming out of college, right? So from not making a single cent in college to making $65,000 first job out of college, I felt that was a pretty good achievement. And this was, again, at the startup. So the way that they structured the compensation was there was no sign-on bonus. It was just base salary. And they were giving out options. Now, at the time, the first time I joined a startup, I didn't know what options were. They explained it to me. Basically, it's if the company does reach a liquidation event, right? So either they get bought out or they went public, then the shares that they give to you would vest at a certain price that you can buy them back. And for example, if the company I was at went public at say $100 and the options that they gave me were at $1, that means I have the option to buy the shares at $1 per share. And when the company goes public at $100, I would have profited the difference, right? The $99 in between. So that was basically what options were. But again, the options were only valuable if the company ever reached a liquidation event. And for most startups in the US, in case you didn't know, startups don't reach a liquidation event. They either go bankrupt or they just shut down. And basically, in those cases, you get nothing out of your options. And so, for me, first year out of college, I was making $65,000, and I wrote off all the options as worthless because I didn't think that they meant anything. They're not worth anything until maybe 5-10 years later, if the company is lucky enough to reach a liquidation event. So $65,000 after taxes, I think I was paying about 20% in taxes. And that was the first time I realized you have to pay taxes in the United States. And that was 20%, so about $12,000 or so out of my $65,000 goes to taxes. And that leaves me with about $50,000 after taxes. And for a fresh graduate, with no student debt, I was very lucky to not have any student debt. It was a very fun time. My rent was really cheap because I was renting with a few friends, and rent in Bellevue at the time ended up being about $500 all in, with utilities, water, everything covered. And that was it, $500. And I bought a car at the time when I graduated with my first paycheck. And the first car that I got was a Honda Civic, and it was a 2003 model, and I bought it for $4,500 in cash. I was just on Craigslist, I looked it up, and I didn't want to spend too much money, but I needed a car because the place where I lived and the place where I worked was quite far apart, and I didn't want to take the bus every single day, and I didn't want to finance the car and get too crazy about it because I didn't think that was a good thing. And so I decided to just buy the car outright. So I took $4,500 in cash, met the person, test drove, and it was a pretty good car. I think it was 100,000 miles at that point. It was 2003, and I bought the car in 2013, I believe. So it was a 10-year-old car with about 100,000 miles on there, and with all Japanese cars are pretty reliable. So Toyota, Hondas, they're reliable, they're inexpensive. I basically didn't pay too much to maintain that car. I only took it for regular oil and gas and that was about it. And I turned around and sold it about 3-4 years later, and sold it exactly at the same price that I bought it at, $4,500. So you could say that I drove a car for free, and I thought it was a pretty good financial decision at that point. And the point, I got promotion a year after that, and they increased my salary from $65,000 to $72,500. And I was basically doing the same things, and that was like a 20% bump in salary, which was amazing. I just got more money to save, and because my monthly expenses were pretty low, I only had to pay for rent. I didn't have student loans. I didn't have car loans. I didn't have a mortgage to pay. So you could imagine I was, netting about. And my monthly expenses were pretty low because I don't eat out that often either. My biggest expenses were rent, which was $500, and that didn't change for 2 to 3 years. And I was spending a little bit of money on buying some food, buying some groceries. That was about $200, $300. And then I was paying for a LA Fitness membership. I was pretty much into gym and working out, and that was $25 a month. And that's where I spent majority of my time after work. I was going there to work out, shower, and go home. Day in, day out, I did that for about 3 years. So I could save, I think, approximately 60-70% of my income, even though I didn't have RSUs or anything. But I was probably saving about, I don't know, $40,000 a year, basically, give or take. And that was a really awesome feeling because I felt invincible at the time. No matter what I spent the money, no matter how I spent the money, it always felt like there was more money coming in. So I didn't know what to do with it. I started looking at buying little gadgets, electronics, things like that. But it never occurred to me to buy expensive things, like luxury bags, luxury clothes, luxury watches. No. I just saved up every penny that I had, and I didn't have a goal in mind specifically, other than, maybe at some point I'll buy a house or put it into the stock market. And that went on for 3 years, and along the way I got little bumps here and there, and eventually the first time I was making more than $100,000 was when I interviewed at Amazon, and I got an offer, and my company offered or counter offer to keep me, right? So I told them, hey, Amazon was giving me this offer, I'm thinking of leaving, and then decided that they're gonna do a counter offer. All right, to finish up what I was saying, so the real big change, the leap to 100K per year was when, so I actually made a video about this, right? So I got an interview with Amazon, and got an offer with them for SDE2 position. And I don't remember the exact numbers, so you probably can check out the video. I'll link it somewhere around here so you can go check it out later on. But it was the first time my base was more than $100,000. And that also included RSUs, right? So total compensation around that time, I don't remember, it was like maybe 150, 160K, probably, something like that. And I took that offer, and I was very tempted to go because, not every day you get to join a big tech company, right? And especially Amazon. Everyone knows about Amazon. It was growing fast. This was in 2015, I believe. And, it's, in Seattle, that was like the big thing. Everyone was trying to get into Amazon. So I took that offer. I told my manager at the time that, hey, I'm going to leave the company. And they came back the next day and they said that they're going to match my offer. And that's how I got my bump to 115,000, I think, base, right? So the RSUs at Amazon, there's still something a little bit different. And there's a whole reason why I decided not to join Amazon later on. So I decided to stay with a startup. And that was how I went from 65K to about 72K and then 110K after that. All right. So I just thought that was interesting. So it took me about 3 years to go from 65 to 110. And during this time, I don't think my lifestyle really changed that much. I was still going to the gym, I was still staying at the same place. My expenses never really changed. It's just that now every month, my income or like the savings was increasing, right? I put everything into stock market and just kind of let it grow. And I start traveling a little bit more, going to different places, but still it felt like that feeling. I don't know if you would call it, financially free, but that feeling was definitely amazing because you could spend. I felt like I could just spend on anything. I could buy anything. I could buy a new phone every single month if I wanted to, and money was still coming in, and I didn't have to worry about, hey, I have bills to pay. I've got this, I've got that. It just felt really free at the time, and I felt like I could stay at the same place. It was still a good place. I was renting for $500 a month. I think eventually they increased it to $700, but still, right? That's like the only major expense I ever had. Car was paid off, and no loans, no debt, nothing whatsoever. My credit card, great credit score. Yeah, so I think just want to share really quickly. That was like the progression there. I think this is pretty typical for a lot of software engineers, especially in the United States. I acknowledge that this is probably not the case for people outside of the United States. Europe, for example, it's not very common. Asia, Southeast Asia, for sure. And I recognize that it's very lucky to be in that position at the time. And yeah, I just wanted to share my experience, kind of how career progression and salary progression went. And yeah, I don't know, maybe this is useful for someone. Cool. Yeah, leave a comment below if you wanted to know more about what you could do to negotiate better in your career, because I've done quite a bit of that several times throughout my career actually. And I'd love to hear what was your career salary and progression. All right, see you tomorrow. Bye.